it? First of all, I must say, can't comment on the specific case because there's going to be a lot of legal, this is going to go on, and it would be wrong to. But I can think of many instances in my own practice that have been a bit like this. Makes me sick in the stomach to hear talk of things like this, because I must say in my patch, whenever I hear of a serious offence that's taken place over the weekend and something dramatic on the news, particularly something extraordinary like this, the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end, because I think, oh God, is it one of mine this time? And I have about 20 people at this moment, I think, on the streets who I would prefer to be locked away, but can't because I have nowhere to put them. And the problem is, for every person we send out, and very often we send people out, in our hearts we know before they're really ready to go. Because there's someone more ill, there's someone, if you were madder and battering casualty, waiting to come in. And we're faced with that practical dilemma every day.
So you have to decide which dangerous people to let out.
Yeah. It's important to get the problem in perspective. Most people with serious mental illness, particularly schizophrenia, aren't violent. They aren't dangerous. They're actually nice people. We're talking about a small minority, but the trouble is that small minority creates such suffering and distress for themselves and everyone else when tragedies like this happen. And we don't have the mechanism to adequately deal with them at the moment. There's no doubt about it.
Peter, when you told the doctors, when you told the hospital that you were worried, you were frightened, what reaction did you get?
I was told he was a voluntary patient and therefore he could leave if he wanted to. And if I didn't take him back home, then he was on the streets.
So you had to take him back home?
My words were that they're putting the ball back into my court.
And when he was at home and the community nurse was visiting him, did you think he was taking his medication?
Well, the deal was if he came home, he'd have injections, because I knew he wouldn't take the tablets.
Yeah.
And on the first visit, he refused the injections.
Did you know he had?
We were not told. My wife was concerned, actually rang up the nurse, and he said, well, what can I do about it?
So he was free to choose to refuse that injection?
Yes.
It actually beggars belief, doesn't it? But when you once again went to them and said, I think he should be readmitted, I think something might happen, did you feel they were listening to you?
I thought the doctor was deaf. She didn't seem to hear what I'd got to say. Her concern was for Anthony.
The concern was for Anthony. They're not listening to the family.
I hear that said a lot, and there's more than an element of truth in it, actually. The problem with community care is that it involves a cast of thousands. It involves nurses, community nurses, social workers, care workers who often have very little training. And to coordinate efforts and to make sure that everyone knows what everyone else is doing gets really hard sometimes.
Why doesn't an alarm bell ring? I mean, a community nurse goes to the home of a known schizophrenic who ought to have medication to give him an injection. He says, no, I don't want it. Why doesn't she immediately go back, or he go immediately back to the hospital or somebody and say, there's a chap out there who won't take it as medicine?
It should do. Alarm bells should ring. They don't for various reasons. And one of the problems is that there's a massive misconception, not just amongst the public and politicians, but amongst some mental health workers as well, about the nature of mental illness. Schizophrenia, in particular, is a brain disease. It's a neurological disease that needs to be treated with drugs by doctors and nurses. It has nothing to do with stress. Stress can make it worse, but you can have hot and cold running care workers, counsellors, hostels, day centres and so forth. That's not going to make it any better. If people don't take the medication, they'll break down. And the problem is that there are some people in the business, I have to say, who don't think that's the case, who look at it from a very different perspective. Yeah. And medication is the least part of things. People are often more concerned with social things.
But shouldn't this be part? Would you like the power to be able to force people to take medication?
Absolutely. Many of us have been saying for ages that, I should say, there's a lot of recent guidance from the Department of Health to tell us how we should manage these individuals in the community. And frankly, I think all of it is just pangloss. It's a cosmetic exercise to make it look as if something's being done. The nitty-gritty is we need a sanction to enable us to require patients in the community to take treatment, because nothing else is going to make one half the difference.
Who would resist that? Who would resist the idea of compulsory medication if people refuse it? Why?
I think that there are other things you can do. I think if the care program approach was tackled in the right way and people made the right relationships and right education with the family and the person, and if the people were really listened to, a lot more people would take the medication. The medication isn't always nice to take. There are bad side effects for some people. There is such a small number who need to have a sanction. But if they need that sanction, they need to be taken into hospital, because it's not just the medication. They will need other sorts of care at the same time. And therefore I think they should go into hospital at that time, which the supervision order in the community, which takes place on April the 1st, does allow them to be assessed quickly and back into hospital.
Is this going to solve matters at all?
I think the supervision order, supervision registers, I mean, all these sort of wheezes that come from the Department of Health, it's very difficult for the public to sort of get the mind around them. It's difficult for us as in the profession to get our mind around them. It's no extra resources come with this. I don't think it has a place to play in the management of any of my patients. My local colleagues would agree with me. The problem is that it's all very well saying bring these people into hospital when they cease to comply with the medication. We don't have the beds to bring them into. In my unit, we run at 120% bed occupancy. That means we actually have more people on the ward than there are beds, and we have to send people out with to friends, to family. We have them sleeping on the floor sometimes.
Like Anthony was sent home to his family.
There's absolutely nowhere to put them.
This is an appalling situation. Roy Lilly, you're one of the architects of the government health reforms. It does sound, listening to this and listening to what Dr. Deal has to say, that lack of resources and lack of beds are one of the root causes.
Probably. This year we're seeing a further £100 million of resources going into mental health services. That's the financial year that starts in a few weeks' time in April. But it seems to me that the catalogues of disasters that we've heard here aren't just about resources. I mean, we could gold plate the system and put every last red cent we've got into the service if we wanted to. But at the end of the day, people have to do their jobs. Now, it is a clinical decision about the discharge of patients. A full sense of well-being is a well-known characteristic of people suffering from schizophrenia. You do have to make clinical judgments about whether or not people should be and are able to be supported in the community. If that isn't the case, and there'll be an inquiry into this case, then clearly people have to be held to account.
Dr. Deal, it's not members of Parliament that let people out into the community.
Sure.
It is psychiatrists. It's your ultimate responsibility.
Absolutely. I think the public needs to be aware of the pressures we work under, particularly, as I say, with the situation that for every patient we look at with a view to discharge, we know that there's a couple of people waiting in casualty, needing to come in and needing that bed.
If Dr. Deal is right, and he's got a queue of people, all of whom could be dangerous, the best he can do is say, I've got 5 beds and 20 people, all of who ought to be in those beds. I can only pick 5.
In his own admission, he said earlier in the programme, did he not, that we're talking about a very tiny minority of people who do become a threat to themselves and others, the majority of schizophrenics, and we should make this clear, because there will be viewers tonight who suffer from schizophrenia, and we don't want to pariah them. They can be managed perfectly satisfactorily, lead normal lives, have proper jobs and have family lives, quite normally like the rest of us. And it is important that we don't run away with the idea that he's got 1,000 raving lunatics he's looking after, because he hasn't.
Your son is schizophrenic, I understand.
Yes, I have a son.
Does he feel, I know you don't like the word, but stigmatised, as though all this publicity...
I don't like the word stigmatised because people mean all sorts of different things by it. I have a son who's been extremely ill in the past, but thanks to clozapine, a drug which could do a lot more for the people who have really difficult problems, and many doctors don't know how to use it.
What do you think, Peter, should have happened to Anthony?
He shouldn't have been let out in the first place. But once he was let out, the first time he refused his injection at home, that should have been straight back in.
Was there any indication at the end, after that awful day, of what had been going through his mind? Are you any clearer as to what he was thinking or why he did it?
Well, he says it's the voices, the devil, but I mean, I'm no clearer now.
You have frankly said that you thought you might take things into your own hands. What did you contemplate doing?
Well, killing him. As simple as that. I thought something might happen. And at the end of the day, my first duty is to my family.
Tell me when that happened. What was the scene?
Well, it's just that one night he'd left the TV on and fallen asleep, and I'd gone down to switch it off, and I just looked at him and thought, you know, something is going to happen, and I may have to deal with it before it happens.
Something has got to happen before this happens again, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
And it's you can buck pass about resources and lack of psychiatrists. Still, isn't there anything now that the government could do without spending any more money?
There's several things the government could do. I think first of all we all need to come clean and admit that for a small number of patients we need long stay hospital care or medium stay hospital care. Don't want to reopen the asylums, don't want to go down that road again, but for a small number they need to be in hospital, and we want to do away with this silly charade of sending them out, they stop the medication, break down, go to prison, back into hospital. That's one thing that we can do. I think we need a compulsory treatment order. I think the Royal College of Psychiatrists strongly supported that when it was considered a couple of years ago, and we'd like that to be re-examined. And then there are other short-term things we can do to relieve the pressure on hospital beds. I should say one particular thing is that now, quite rightly, we get lots of people sent to us from prisons and from the judicial system who are mentally ill. Now, that's right, they shouldn't be in prison, but the Home Office and the courts don't have to pay for it, and it's no skin off their nose if they spend months and months and months blocking beds.
Thank you.
That's another measure.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, and particularly thank you to you, Peter. I guess if any of these measures are brought into play as a result of your bravery in coming to talk to us, you will at least think you've achieved something. Thank you very much indeed.
But after the break, they kissed, the men, and told the tale in the tabloids. Dear, 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 how could they do it? That's next. Welcome back. Well, after Charles with Jonathan Dimbleby, Diana on Panorama, the next in line is Major Hewitt on, well, we don't actually know yet because the bidding is still underway on the story of his affair with Diana, Princess of Wales. The question, is it ever right to kiss and tell? Well, just talking about the James Hewitt affair, whatever it was, Molly Parking, evidently they had a very, very loving relationship. Clearly, there was a great deal of intimacy there, and it was very special to both of them. Surely it should stay that way, private.
Well, rumour has it around London dinner tables that they're having a secret love affair again, and that they have returned to each other.
Well, that's just rumour, that's just tittle-tattle. Let's go on what we actually do know, which is what she said and what he said. She said she loved him very much, and he said, well, all that stuff in the book. So let's just go on what we do actually know. Surely it should stay secret.
No, I don't think so, really. I mean, I'm one for kissing and telling. I think that any act which you engage upon, it's up to you whether you feel embarrassed, ashamed, and we all have done these things in our past, but the person that we engaged in that activity with is a different person. You've moved beyond that relationship, and in the case of certain people who might have been involved with celebrities or indeed royalty, royalty and celebrities have their own income. If they want to buy silence from their partner, they must give them that money. If that partner wants to make money, have a little bit of income from their past, I think everything...
What sort of moral position is
that?
I mean,
don't.
Why are
don't
you...
talk
why,
this moral tosh,
why are you
please.
so fascinated with the sex lives of other people?
Don't talk this moral tosh,
Okay, I'm
please.
not talking moral tosh. I'm asking you, why are you so fascinated with the sex lives of other people? It's slightly perverse,
Are
isn't
you
it?
not fascinated with it? I should think that everybody is fascinated.
My own sex life is quite fascinating enough. Thank you very much indeed. Now, Fiona Lafferty. Fiona, I mean, maybe she does have a point. Maybe there is a case where somebody, especially somebody, never mind politicians, who many people think, because of their hypocrisy, may deserve it, or churchmen who are caught with their trousers down or whatever churchmen wear. But surely there is a case for some people when they've been chewed up, spat out, to tell their side of the story.
No, I think it's tawdry, it's undignified, and so what, they get £3,000 or £30,000? No. what they end up with is their loss of pride, their dignity, their loss of privacy. You know, nobody wins at the end of the day, and if they do it as an act of revenge, only themselves suffer. It's never the people who they're kissing and telling about.
Molly Parker?
Tosh. I said.
Now, Larry, you were trying again. Now, from the Sunday Mirror, of course.
This is such an English attitude.
All right, Larry Taylor from the Sunday Mirror.
The vast majority of celebrities who end up on the front of Sunday newspapers are not attractive, let's face it. Steve Davis being a case in point. Now, he used his fame, his money, his success to get a girl into bed. If she then decides to use the same things, his fame, his success, his money, to make money for herself, why not?
No, you're talking about that. We've actually... but before you come in, we've got the girl in question here, but we will come to her later because we want to cover some other issues first. Now, of course, this sort of tittle-tattle is the lifeblood of your newspaper, but how would you feel, Larry, if you were in an enjoyable, intimate, but indiscreet...
Are you offering?
No, certainly not. Just imagine, hey, just pretend,
Yes.
indiscreet with a colleague of yours, for example, and just say the story would leak to a rival newspaper and it was on the front page.
Right.
How would you feel? How would you feel?
Know, of course I'd be devastated, but you know, a celebrity
Why
knows.
would you be devastated?
Nobody wants the intimate details of their sex life on any front page. However, you know, those guys who do either pick up a hooker or basically trick a young and often fairly naive girl into bed, they know they're running the risk, or my goodness, they should know by now. They're either very, very stupid or incredibly arrogant. If they think they can buy this girl's silence with an autographed photograph, and they deserve to have their private lives splashed all over.
I've got to say before I go any further, because Cherry Gillam is here, you've got a few autographed photographs, haven't you?
Well, of my ex-men, you mean?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'll just go through. Marquis of Bath, you were one of his wifelets, Cherry, and you're about to write a book about all this, so I'm not sort of spilling the beans too much. Omar Sharif.
Yeah,
you gave me the lowdown on
done him,
You gave me the
and I've actually written about him anyway.
Ryan O'Neill,
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone, and you were just telling me earlier on you made sweet music with Burt Bacharach as well.
Oh yes, it's true.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of you too.
Well, no chance. But you've made a lot of. You've made a lot.
Sorry, that was a very throwaway line. No chance.
Well, you never know. A couple of gin and tonics now, anyways. But listen, you've made a lot of money from these. To be serious,
Yes.
which you obviously weren't being then.
Wait a minute, hold on.
You've made a lot of money from this. Why?
Why? Wait a minute. I didn't say anything
Why?
for 20 years. Right? I kept quiet about all of them. Burt Bacharach, who was married to, what's her name? What was her name? Angie Dickinson at the time. And never said a word. I protected all these people. What good did they do to me? Nobody ever said, hey, Burt Bacharach actually said to my friends. But hold on. Wait a minute. They were doing very well.
For 20 years they kept their mouth shut. You've got a bigger who's who than my agent, I tell you.
They have a reason. I'm saying they were stars. They did, and they were just using me
human
sexually.
beings. What goes on in a bedroom should be
Why should they expect some kind of code of... Why should they expect a code of honour from you?
You
when they are
expected a
behaving,
code of honour when
they are
Nicky asked you the
behaving,
question
no,
a while
when they
ago.
are-
You wouldn't like
when
it, so
they
why do you
behave
expect
without
everybody
honour
else
by
in this
sleeping
audience
with
to have
somebody
it?
who is not their wife,
Exactly.
they abdicate all rights to
Listen,
everybody else behaving with
For
honour.
years upon years,
hold
women...
on.
Hang on. It's just too much now. Fiona Lafferty. Yes, Fiona Lafferty.
I don't
You
understand
say I'm
what your
two
point is.
consenting adults.
Yes,
We
you
weren't.
enjoyed
No,
this
I
at
was
the
a young,
time.
naive bird who was impressed by stardom, which most young girls are.
Oh, that's nonsense. You've just thought, you've got to a point in your life where you've just thought you needed a bit of money and you're
I
cashing
don't
on
need
your
money.
account.
I don't need.
All right, let me ask you a question. Hang on. Cherry,
I could buy
Cherry,
everybody out
I'm
here.
sure you've
Money
got lots of
I don't
money. I'm
need.
sure.
I haven't got it from Kiss and Tell.
Oh, right.
All right?
I think Fiona touching on something there that you're not going to see 40 again, right?
Sorry?
You're not going to see 40
I'm
again.
51 and
All right.
I'm not going to...
Well, you look fine. I've got to say, you look fantastic
Thank
for
you,
51.
darling. I still don't want to do you now.
No, there's is that what it is? Doing somebody?
A quick do.
Well, there's quite a few people being done.
Remark,
Yeah,
I might say.
Well, wait for it because it's going to get worse. So isn't the point that you won't reach 40 again, and your chances of actually having such encounters with such A-grade celebrities will lessen as the years go on? So now you're cashing in.
No, not true at all, darling. It's in the book. Listen, I pull as well as I ever pulled. In fact, better nowadays because men like a strong woman, a lot of them.
Don't you
I
feel
pull a
you're
lot
doing
better now
women
than
down,
I
aren't
ever did
you?
because now I'm in control of them.
Oh,
now
Terry,
I
it's so cheap.
Yeah, you're
What,
doing...
you think it's cheap?
Yes,
I do. I
think
think
it's cheap.
listen,
Don't
when
you have any dignity?
Oh,
Where's
such morals and
Goodness
stuff. For
sake.
years, women have fought,
Such a
quite rightly so, to
moralistic
be
prick.
equal to man, and all you do, everybody looks at you as a complete bimbet.
I am actually a Cherie was a bimbet to keep her mouth shut.
Larry, one more
Now
question.
she's riding
What,
on.
Cherry,
guys deserve
Greg,
payback.
one more question. And this is a thing that some people, I think it's an appalling question, but I feel some people at home might want to
You
ask.
want to ask it?
What's the
I'm
difference
up for
between,
it.
what is it, you're good, well we know that,
What
but what's
is
the difference between what you
Omar
do
Sharif and
and
Ryan
prostitution,
O'Neill?
making money from
Because
sex?
I already have money. I don't do this for money.
What's the
It's time. It's
You're getting money
payback
for it.
time.
You're getting money
I
for
hope
it.
so, yes, but it's
What is the
payback
difference?
time.
Well,
And
but
no,
you,
listen,
well, you could reverse that question. What's the difference between the guy who uses his fame to get a girl into bed and a guy who
Yeah,
pays?
that's true.
Same,
Look,
you might as well use
listen,
a
I would
prostitute.
Oh, come,
start
let's
a
face
ball.
it, would you like to be the girl in this world to have been known in your life as the one who went to bed with Steve Davis?
Yeah.
Meet Cherie Palla. Steve Davis did again and again and again and again and again and again. Was it 7 or 9?
9.
9. Unbelievable. What staying power. I won't do the joke about chalking the queue. So, I mean, 9 is incredible, but let's just take it back. You obviously got paid for it by the Sun.
Yes.
How much?
We would like to discuss that.
Quite a lot, obviously.
No.
I'd like to get the story straight about it. I'm the one that phoned up the Sun, phoned up the newspapers and told them all about it because I could see the relationship was going nowhere and I wanted it to stop because I care about my best friend.
Why did you
It
phone
was-
the Sun then?
Yeah, but it wasn't at all like
Because
how
I could
everyone
see
thought
that
it
the
was.
relationship was
She
going
was
nowhere
obsessed.
and I thought it would be better if she made a few pounds out of it and then it would all be done over with.
Well, more than a few pounds. But that wasn't... That was an act of a friend. And she put your relationship, which had been intimate and special, because you loved him, didn't you?
Yes,
And he said he loved you.
yes.
How did you feel about Chloe going to the newspaper and having it splashed all over the newspaper?
Yeah, I wasn't too pleased about it, but
But you still posed for photographs?
yeah, I did. But I knew that that
The Sun switched it around. They actually said, listen, we're going to run the story anyway.
whether I like it or not.
Yeah, but they would just tricked you into that because they couldn't run it without you saying anything. If he didn't say anything and you didn't say anything, they couldn't run it, so you fell into a trap. But never mind, it has been estimated it's about £30,000 you got, so it's around about that. It's not going to be less than that, is it?
No.
So the fact that you said that you loved him, it must have been, was it not incredibly painful to go through that and to talk
Yes,
about that?
It was very painful, and I was very upset about all the whole deal. I didn't think I was going to be on the front page of like 2 newspapers, and it was much bigger than I thought it would be, and it was really embarrassing.
If it was going to be a small sort of just a tiny little column on page 4 or something, where were they going to put the photograph of you posing nude?
Yeah, but it said snooker with a cutie potted 9 times or something.
But that was true, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was on the second day.
Whatever happened to the art of
It was
conversation?
on the
That's what I
second
want to
day
know.
that she had to pose for the photos when it had already all been run on the front page in any case.
Well, she didn't have to. Larry.
Fairly young, fairly naive, who is starstruck. And from what I read, Steve didn't treat you terribly well, quite frankly. It was like, make a phone call, be here at
No,
the same
let
time.
her respond.
And
Let her
it was
respond.
only when the scales fell from her eyes and you realised that, no, he's not going to leave his wife and marry me and we're not going to walk off into the sunset. Right, okay, now payback time. He used your naivety against him and you had a right to pay him back for that.
Did you think that he would...
No, at first he told me that he did not have a wife. He never had a wedding ring on or nothing. Until I started getting emotionally involved with him, he then told me he was married. I didn't know nothing about him until I met him.
How many
I didn't
times-
know nothing about snooker.
How many
Why
times
would I
did
wanna
you...
know about
For how long
snooker?
did you see him? How many times did you see him, for example?
Loads of times, because I'm a dancer. I went up to London quite a lot, and we used to just meet in London, Torquay, wherever we went. We used
And
to
did
just
you
meet
worry
up.
about the fact, when you must have found out at some stage that he had a wife and kids, did you worry about that?
Yeah, I found out from my auntie that he had a wife and kids, and I told him about it, but I was so emotionally involved with him at the time, I just really didn't care. I really liked him a lot.
You sure it wasn't
Why
his
is it-
money?
No, it wasn't his money. I mean, look at him. He's not very good looking. Money's not everything.
Exactly, he's not very good looking, but had he been
Yeah,
someone
but I
who
could
hadn't
go
got money...
out and get someone with money who's good looking and someone nice.
Yeah, but he's famous.
You must have
isn't
thought he was good looking.
I could go and get someone who's famous.
Snooker player.
He's a snooker player who's got lots of money.
Is you sure that's not what's going through your head?
What do you mean? What do you mean he's not? I
We
mean,
go to clubs.
what do you mean he's not good looking?
We go to clubs where E17 are and Eternal and all people like that.
Yeah.
You know, we could go and get one of them if we wanted to.
Are you
but-
sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Not 9 times a
Not
night. None of that
Eternal.
lot. I could tell you that.
Why is it any different? Why is it any different?
William Oddie, I mean, is she justified in doing what she's done?
Well, I don't know if she is or not. All I know
Well-
is I just don't give a damn what she did with him, you know? It's her business, and I don't want to know about it. And what worries me...
If you don't want to know about it, she shouldn't have gone to the newspapers.
See,
Or Chloe shouldn't have
what
gone to the
worries me
newspapers.
about all this is that, I mean, it's quite right to say, to point out that the Sun is the biggest circulation daily, and the News of the World is I didn't realise it was the biggest Sunday newspaper in the world. But I mean, what does that say about what kind of people we've become? That, you know, so many people are prepared to just, I don't know, get their thrills out of other people's sex
Who reads the
lives.
Sun or the News of the World? I mean, who reads it? I mean, put your hand up if you read. People are just
No one's going to
being a
admit
little
to
bit
it.
reticent. All right, the lady back there, you read it. Do you enjoy reading all this tittle tattle?
Yes, I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
How would you feel if it was? How would you feel it was a member of your family that was dragged into it, or do you think people who are famous and wealthy deserve it? They've just got to go with that.
Go with that, yeah. I would not do it personally. I don't think any member of my family would either.
Now we've got Lynn Perry here. Now, how would you feel if a member of your family was exposed to that sort of thing in the tabloid newspaper?
I was. A gentleman went to the press and told that he'd had me, and for about 4 months.
And had he?
Yes. But if he wanted to go there and he
How-
thought I was somebody, I mean, I could be as ugly as anything, but if he thought I was... I'm of
How
the
did you
opinion,
feel?
I'm of the opinion that no matter what, if a person goes into this business, you take what you go into. And if somebody thinks it's good to come up and say they've been to bed with you, whether they do it for money or whatever they do, you have taken that responsibility on the minute that you walk
You
on
stick your head above the parapet, you go into stage television, you deserve everything you get if you
Yes.
sleep with somebody.
Yes.
You talk absolute rubbish.
Go on, yes, go on.
Absolute rubbish.
It is not rubbish.
You get onto a stage, you are doing a job.
you
Unfortunately,
wouldn't go-
you're past your sell-by date. You know, and that's not being rude, but you are.
I wasn't talking about
On your
past
job.
myself
But all
that
I'm
day.
saying, you do not deserve it. Nicky doesn't deserve it, you don't
Outrageous.
deserve it, none of anybody deserves it.
I'm not being so very funny, but you're no bloody oil painting.
No, I'm not. I'm no oil painting, but I am, you know...
She doesn't deserve the remark
But
you've
all
just
I'm saying
made
to you,
to her.
nobody deserves to get harassed by the press.
But isn't the bottom line
I
how
wouldn't
people...
even
It's all
bother
about,
going with
but
you.
Lynn Perry, it's all about behaving like a lady, behaving like a gentleman, something evidently he knows nothing about.
Nicky,
But behaving
I
like a
was
gentleman,
not.
and to behave like a lady, to behave like a gentleman, you say nothing. You have the discretion.
When I went into this business, I knew what I was going into, and like I say, you can be Quasimodo on that stage, and somebody's going to look at you
I'm
and
here.
say, "Bloody hell, you can go." And they're going to...
Go on, Stephanie, very briefly, go on.
Even if they don't, even if they haven't had you, or even if they haven't been with you, they will say they have. And you've got no defence at all.
Nicky, this won't be popular, but I'm gonna take the moral high ground here. And this gentleman over here said, if everybody reads the Sun, what has this world come to? What does the world come to when people can treat their partners, their loved ones, by committing adultery, by being indiscreet, and still expect utter and absolute loyalty from that person until the end of their days?
Thank you all very much indeed for taking part. Thank you. But after the break, the black men who are dying in the streets at the hands of other black men. Why are they killing each other? That's in a couple of minutes. Welcome back. One by one, our major cities seem to be succumbing to a growing crime trend in the black community, in which young black men get shot in the street by other young black men. Birmingham's the latest.
The latest shooting happened in Winson Green in Birmingham at the end of last week. Junior Carter was attacked as he sat in a car. Last month, Jason Wharton was murdered by a gang outside a blues party in Hockley Hill. And in January, President Sass narrowly escaped death after being shot and wounded, also in Winson Green. That followed the murder of Trevor Hamilton, who was gunned down by masked men in Handsworth Wood.
The question, why are black people doing this to each other and how can it be stopped? I mean, at Shakespeare, you hang out in dangerous areas, the common knowledge that there's guns on the street. Why are young black people killing young black people?
Well, what can I say about that? I mean, number one, it could be, and sometimes it is drug-related. Most of the time it's drug-related. Most of the time it's because they've offended the other party in a family, or they've hurt a girl child or whatever, and it happens.
But there's a certain shift in the levels of violence if we're talking about people being shot here.
Well, the violence, I mean, there were violence here before in my day, but of course it was knives and cutthroat razors. Now it's guns. It's coming from Jamaica. The kids in England have got guns. And I think we all have to have some form of weapon to protect ourselves against maybe Yardies or the young rogues of England.
Do you have a weapon to protect yourself?
I do, yes.
Can I ask what it is?
Well...
All right. Perhaps you
something dangerous.
Something dangerous. You're not a woman to be tackled. Bill Doofus, since Christmas we've got 3 dead, 1 in hospital. What's the answer?
The answer is that as a community, we're taking responsible action in order to address this issue. For example, we just recently launched a campaign in the inner city area of Handsworth with the intention of bringing the community together around exposing the people who are actually involved with this violence. We're saying at this point in time, you know, enough is enough.
All right, how are you going to do that though?
How are we going to do that? What we will do is to mobilize community action around this issue.
But are we talking about vigilantes on the street here?
We're talking about taking appropriate action.
Whatever is that vigilantes on the street?
Whatever the action is, we're talking about appropriate action.
Well, what do you term appropriate action?
The mobilization of our community to expose the activities of these people.
A lot of people here will say that's vigilantes.
Well, everybody, you know, is free to make their own.
Well, let me ask you then, is that because you consider the police not doing enough for your community?
Absolutely. You know, we are quite concerned, in fact, about the lack of response to such kind of activities inside our community by the police.
John Mellett, you're a former police superintendent. The police aren't doing enough. It's as simple as that.
I'm quite sure that the police are doing everything they can. I like the fact that he talks about the fact that the community is going to take action. Well, the community can, of course, take action now. There are investigations going on at this particular time into all the murders and attempted murders, and if the community has got any information, then there's a method, an anonymous method, of telephoning the details through. Why is it it's taken so long to do this? I mean, blacks are killing blacks, but whites kill whites as well. It isn't peculiar to any one section of the community, but within minutes of a murder being known among whites, information flows in. When it occurs with blacks, there is stony silence. So if what he is saying is that he's going to provide an information service for the police, then I'm personally delighted.
All right, because that's the truth of the matter, isn't it? A lot of these killings took place in broad daylight in the street, and yet no witnesses came forward.
That certainly is not what I'm saying. We're not providing an information service for the police force.
But how do you expect to catch? How do you expect to catch the perpetrators of the crime?
Well, the police have already established inside our community a whole range of systems and networks. We know, for example, that the police use criminal elements within our community as informers, and this has been a practice that they've used year in and year out. And we know also that some of those same informants, right, those criminal elements in our community are the people who are killing each other.
Well, we would have liked them to be here, but sadly they declined our invitation. Beanie, next to you.
Just goes to show.
In your opinion, do the police really care about black crime against black people?
The police don't really care about crimes when it comes to black people. If it's a black youth, an African youth attack a white woman or a white youth or a white man, there's an immediate response to it. If it's when it's black and black, the police don't care. For instance, the police was invited to a meeting on Wednesday night. This is an area subcommittee meeting of the council. There's a 3 months notice and the police refused to come to that meeting.
Why do you think they refused?
Because they don't care anything about black people at all. And if they cared about black people, they would have showed respect for the black lives that are getting wasted in the street. And we're not just talking about these incidents of probably these 3 brothers who were killed. We're talking about this ongoing process where young people feel they're immune from prostitution. And when they see the informer network that they said the police sets up, that these very informers go immune from prosecution, then these young people feel that they can be immune too. So it's the police's fault.
All right, so
you have to get that right.
You're firmly pointing the finger at the police. Who do you point the finger at?
I don't want to point the finger at anybody. Let's put this in context. Most black people, including young people, are law-abiding citizens. The media tend to portray us as pirates. We can be captains too. You always focus on the negative. It's got to be a combination, a partnership between the police and the black community.
But there seems to be an almighty divide between those two groups.
Well, there are spokespeople who will talk about bringing the communities together. You know, we're all living in the same community. This is a multiracial, multicultural community. It's not a question of it's his fault or it's her fault. Let's talk about getting together.
But he's blaming the police.
Well, he doesn't represent the whole of the black community. There are other voices.
You may say that I don't represent the community. I'm not in here to argument with another African person about what's happening. I am on the grassroots in the community. People know me in my community. This brother here, he's not in our community. He don't know about the muggings and the violence of black. There was a woman who got mugged last week, she's 9 months pregnant. A black woman, 9 months pregnant. Had that been a white woman, it'd been all over this media, right? It's not, when there are incidents taking place in our community, it is ignored. And we're saying that it is ignored not only by the police, but by the government. There's been a conspiracy.
Well, it's not being ignored here, because we're talking about it.
There's a conspiracy to hide the violence that's happening in our community. He's right. Yes, we're law-abiding citizens. If you check our history, when we first started coming here in Operation Windrush, that ship, there weren't any violence as such in our community. How comes then it's all, it is the system that has created the violence in our community by letting down these young people here on the frontier. Yeah. They've been let down. They're born here, grow here. I don't want to hear about yardies. There ain't no question about yardies. It's the homegrown kids who are dissatisfied in what the system done for them.
You've obviously got support there, but the police would say, and a lot of other people would say, that the conspiracy begins with people from, and I'm sorry to keep using this word, your own community, that don't come forward and sort of give evidence against the criminal.
Let me tell you why people don't come forward. Because right now, after many years of an element developing in our community, where that element is now trying to dictate, a small minority, dictate with the backing of the very system in which we live in. Those people feel they're immune from prosecution. Then when they make a threat and a witness that they will waste them, police do not give them protection. And that's why people will not come forward, because the individuals in the street are being threatened, right? That they'll wipe them. So lack of confidence with the police.
All right. Guys out there are shouting about a lack of confidence on the street. You're young guys, what, 16, 17? You hang around clubs, pubs, whatever. What sort of things do you see on the street? Do you see trouble? Do you see violence? Do you hear talk of guns?
Yeah, we hear talk of guns and we see violence and them type of things, but it's just certain people, it's not everybody.
All right, well, when you hear talk of guns, right, let me give you a scenario. You're in a club, your friends are getting beaten up. How far would you go? Would you help sort it out with your fists, or would you possibly pick up that gun and use it?
The gun was on the floor. It depends, because it's all about the heat at the moment. If things is happening, you don't think about it, it's just what happens.
All right, so who do you blame, though? Because is it your parents' fault for sort of perhaps not instilling a greater moral value or something, or what?
Bill's my dad, and, you know.
Oh, he's your dad?
Yeah.
Oh, right, all right. So and he's nodding away, going, don't say that. But, you know, over here, we've got 3, 4 girls here. Is it parents' fault? Is it parents' lack of parental control?
Yeah, I think, you know, if parents, you know, it doesn't matter where you live or, you know, who you are. You know, your parents are there to guide you. You know, once you've got that guidance off your parents, you know, it doesn't matter.
You everywhere.
Yeah,
it's not just your parents as well, though. It's peer group pressure. Obviously, friends.
If you've got the principles instilled in you, you'll know what is right and wrong. You should listen to your parents before you listen to your friends.
And what happens if you don't listen to your parents?
I think, you know, it's just a sorry case for you.
Off the tracks, haven't you?
All right, you're a serving police officer. One sec, I'll come to you in a sec. You're a serving police officer, not in this area, I hasten to add. There does seem to be a feeling that, one, the police aren't listening, and that when there is a crime against a young black guy, old black guy, whatever, by another black person, then the police sort of turn up just to pick up the pieces. They're not there to sort it out early enough.
Well, that's obviously a perception. It's not a perception that we share.
It's a reality.
It might be your view of a reality, but it's certainly not our reality. The problem that we've found in dealing with certain areas of the community, not just the black community, but certain areas, is that if we're criticised because we don't respond until it's too late, we're in the wrong. If we were to put a lot of people, a lot of police officers in uniform into an area, that is seen as threatening, and there's a reaction against it, and we're not welcome. So where do we balance?
Okay, hang on one sec. Let me just come to you. Yeah, what do you want to say?
For a start, the police laughs when it comes to black killing black. This ain't no joke, because I can bring living proof to you. See? Secondly, the laws have took away the rights from parents to discipline their children.
What do you mean by that?
All the laws that they have made that you cannot correct your children, you cannot do this to your children, as your children can do this to you, and now your children can even divorce you. Do you comprehend what is happening?
All right, let me put a scenario to you. What would you do if you've got a young lad and he steps out of line? What would you do?
I and he?
Yeah.
We have a good rapport.
Well, hang on, what would you say to him if he stepped down a line?
We talk about truths and right, so you have to make a choice. Now, when he shows me the living facts, then me and him can deal. You understand me? Now, if you're talking to him and show him truths and rights, and he can listen to you and adhere, how wonderful. But when you have the law telling you what you must do or what you cannot do to your children,
I think could you stop me? I think we're all stressing the point.
Hang on, let him just finish one second. Make it quick.
Your children go out of order. This is why your children can now stick up their fingers in your face and do whatsoever they want. So the law have to go back inside the laws and readdress.
Okay, readdress the balance. Minette, I'll come to you one second. You wanted to say something to me there?
Yes, I did. I think the response must be for the black community is to try and build up faith and confidence with the police, because the police and the community together are the only ones who can solve this problem.
But there would appear to be a great animosity.
The answer to that must surely be for the black community to encourage other members of the black community to join the police force as special constables and as full-time constables.
Right. Now hang on, gentlemen behind you just said.
That is garbage. People like that make me sick. Honestly,
Why?
Right, because the way they treat black people, right, you're telling them to join the police force.
What's wrong with joining the police force as a young black man?
The way they're treated.
Of course.
The way they're treated. The prejudice, the racist, you name it.
See, now
the problem is this kind of comment makes it worse. The only solution is to get involved in it.
You need to get your ass in order first, mate.
Of course, the police.
You need to get your ass in order first.
Of course, the police
to get their acts.
I
because
agree.
number one, the police force are sending for yardies and informers over here. They're getting people locked up.
And they're selling drugs.
Right. And they're selling drugs freely on the bloody streets. Right, because of your people, the police.
He isn't a policeman, I hasten to add.
Whatever you are.
The point is, the police need to get their house in order as well. Of course they do.
They need to get a lot in order. You hear me? A lot in order. But they're sending for informers to kill us blacks.
Of course.
Right, and yardies they're sending for.
But you can't do without the police in this. We need the police.
Well, I'll tell you something now. We don't need them.
You do.
We do not need them because they're not doing nothing for us.
We all need
There
them.
is no law for the black people.
Vigilantes are
Do
not
you
the
understand?
answer.
There is no law.
Yeah.
We take the law in our own hands now, okay? Okay?
Would you please be quiet, gentlemen?
John Taylor, tell me honestly, what have you done for the black community? You're a Conservative MP.
I'm not a Conservative MP at all.
No,
I'm
it's
a
not.
criminal law barrister.
What have you done? What have you done
I've been
for the black
representing
community?
black people
Now,
for
come on,
20
tell me.
years.
He's a
as
role
a
model.
child.
John, tell
And
me.
I'm telling you,
Gentlemen here said, gentlemen here said he's a role model.
against the police is not the answer.
John says, now, hang on, hang on a second. I want to know why there are certain people here that don't see what you do as a role model for the
black community, that's why, John Taylor.
Okay, you want to tell me, you tell me. Jonathan, come in here 1 second.
Because him and me, I mean, he's a lawyer, whatever, right? He's never been there. I mean, the people that are killing people now are not Africans. They're Jamaicans. Has he ever been to Jamaica to see what we got to go through? He ain't been there.
All right. A lot of animosity towards you. Why do you want to respond? Whoa, whoa, well, let him answer the question. No. Would you please, no, please, would you let him answer the question?
Oh, John?
The one thing I do know is that fighting a war against the police is not the answer. The majority of black people in this country are actually law-abiding, hard-working people. I do not think the black people you've got in this particular hall are representative of the black community. I don't think so.
Excuse me. Whoa! Let some of your representatives answer the question. Why are you not representative of the black population?
John does not know what he's talking about. He's talking nonsense.
Why is it?
I live in Hansford.
You stand for every black person, don't you?
I live in
I don't
Hansford.
think so.
These are my community family, okay? We share the same experiences and we are involved in the same struggle. What I speak, they understand. We speak exactly the same language. Do you understand that?
All right.
This man, right?
Tell me now, and all the audience here, tell us now why your view is superior to this black man sat opposite you.
Because I live in the heart of the inner city. That's why. And I live those realities every day.
Can I just answer this man? Now I want to answer this man here, right?
Right.
As far as I can, all up, brethren. This man said we don't have no command of our community. Just hold on 1 minute. He's made some wild statements about getting off our backs and so on. Just a bit. I'm not about John. I'm talking to this man here. If you just listen, this is a man who just spoke, right? I'm not talking about John. I have no war with John. We're talking to this man about...
war with me?
Let's get it off our back, right? If you realize, right, the economy of Britain survived after the exploitation of Africa and the Caribbean.
We're talking about...
So listen, just 1 minute.
I can't have a long political statement from you. What I will say is let's hope there are no more killings. Thank you all very much indeed.
That's it for tonight. Join us next week when homeowners tell a few home truths to the squatters who are making their lives a misery. Till then, take care. Thanks for watching. Good night.